Hello, Zev. B'Shem Hashem Kelolim. What do we need to talk about?
Okay, I think a good place to start would be um, why is this so evolutionary? You're saying something, Das Hashem is so, it's like a new outlook. It's a new outlook and so mechudash and nobody's, why? Like, why is it new? Why isn't this something that that everyone knows already that we've been seeing?
Why hasn't
Um,
everyone been talking about this for
example,
2,000 years?
I guess I'll say the way that it came up to me recently was just now was I see that we have a mitzvah to love Hashem. We have a mitzvah to fear Hashem, to serve Hashem, and we're all been serving Hashem. Every Jew in the world knows that they're serving Hashem. Every religious person, they're serving God, right?
Right,
And I have to know what I'm serving.
right.
So how can I love something I don't know? How can I? So Yedias Hashem and knowing what Hashem is, isn't that just simply like a prerequisite to performing anything in the religion?
Got it.
Um,
Okay. Could I just point
what?
out? I think you just asked two contradictory questions, it seems to me, because you had two questions. One question was, if this topic is so central to everything, how come the expression Das Hashem is not something we hear all the time in every yeshiva, in every besmedrash, in every shmooze, in every learning session? That's question number one. Have you
Question
got
number
right? That was question number one,
yeah.
right? And I will say, I feel it's interesting. Like even for me, this whole um, this whole focus on Das Hashem as being basically the only thing I want to talk about has been an evolution, maybe a revolution as well, but also an evolution. Like it's not 10 years ago, you would have heard it from me like once every 6 months or something. Now it's all I want to talk about. So it took me time to get there myself. Okay, but that's question number one.
Oh, does when we say Yosef
Yosef
had Shem
Atad?
Hashem, yeah, Yosef at
Ah,
Tzaddik.
yeah.
Yeah. I always think about that
Ah,
when I say you say, oh, I want to talk about it as Hashem, and people always talking about Hashem, and I don't know if Yosef had some element of,
very
I don't know.
interesting. But you also have
That's
to be very careful, by the way. The Rambam says cautions somewhere in the Ma'ari, cautions against the people that always talk about Hashem and not knowing what it means. Like
part of
he doesn't
it.
appreciate. Oh, stop! No, no, no. You know.
Um,
Yeah, but yeah, you don't want to just say it. You don't want to just drop Hashem, Hashem this, Hashem that. Okay,
you
that
don't
was
want to say
one
it
question. What?
you don't want to say without meaning it,
Yeah,
because I mean, since we've been talking about it, um, Hashem's been meaning much more to me. And I'll be having a political discussion with somebody, and they'll ask me like a complex, and the answer it's some so funny because sometimes I can go on and on, we can go on back and forth, and it's like, oh Hashem, but sometimes I mean it, and I say it, and I mean it in a deep
wow,
way, and if they're not
amazing.
there, like laugh, like okay, that's not going to get you
Okay, so Mamish, you're
get you
doing it.
graduated, so that's
No, but that's amazing because that's what we were talking about last time. That we, oh, I think this was actually on one of the comments. I was talking about how this will be tested. Is we have to apply it to real problems, and we also have to have groups of people that are working with this together. So going to your case of the political discussion, if you say Hashem, if the other guy knows what you mean and he's also thinking the same way, imagine what that would look like, right? Imagine a room full of people discussing a political issue and all of them are thinking about Hashem. That's when
well,
we get
I
real
have it. I
power.
do have it with some people, Kilu, and I have a discussion with you, maybe a few other people, maybe a handful. But if a certain time in the discussion, something will come up like this, and the answer I'll say Hashem, and you'll understand.
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I
It
think,
already exists.
yeah.
Well,
We
pull it out. It won't be a cliche or something silly, but
have,
you'll understand a lot of what I'm trying to
yeah,
say.
yeah. And of course, um, Das Hashem Ba'aretz, as in the application of Hashem to political matters, means being able to chart that and to say, okay, Hashem, therefore, being able to talk about that in a coherent way, in application, in application to political questions.
Okay.
Okay, let's just leave that. I want to get back to your question. Okay, and we can
We'll leave that. Okay,
do
come
that.
back.
No, I think politics is very important. I mean, that's politics and Das Hashem go together. Um, okay, so one question. How come this topic is not the one topic that everyone's talking about all the time? Okay, that was one question. And since we had a previous conversation and there's been some feedback, I want to just like lump into that category of that question a few things that people have expressed. One of them was some privately, some publicly. One person was expressing the fact that like Das Hashem is the totality of all sorts of knowledge and it's not a specific thing. So that's sort of an argument against talking about it because
Isn't that a specific thing?
the totality of all knowledge,
Yeah.
maybe not, because maybe it
It
doesn't have
doesn't
full
sound so
flavor.
off to me, honestly. You'd
Doesn't
have
sound
to,
what?
it doesn't sound so off to me, and you'd have to that sounds like a fantastic start.
I
I
did not
mean,
do, exactly. I don't disagree with him. However, the question becomes whether it's worth talking about Das Hashem as an independent thing, or are we just talking about everything? In which case, let's just pick one thing to talk about. There's an interesting question there, right? If Das Hashem is just the sum of everything, he's like it's the sum of Kabbalah, it's the sum of metaphysics, it's the sum of all science and mathematics, and so on and
right.
so forth. And I agree with him that every time you study and gain knowledge of reality, which is Hashem's actions, you're gaining more Das Hashem. The Rambam says that it's a basic idea. The question is then he was seems to be arguing that therefore, what's the point of spending time talking about Das Hashem if we could be studying metaphysics or Kabbalah or math or science?
Wait, that's completely. First of all, I agree that Das Hashem is the totality of everything.
Okay,
Okay,
fine.
I, I do.
I don't.
Um,
I want to say I don't.
okay,
Not quite, but yeah. Go on.
okay. My when I say everything, I mean even whatever you think it is. Okay, but um,
Oh yeah, your
that
Das Hashem is always gonna be bigger than mine. That's that.
um, but I think that like that's like saying to Einstein, why are you looking for a unifying theory of everything if you could just study everything and compartmentalize the most complex and mind exploding schedule of doing 10 minutes of physics and then on Sunday morning and then Monday morning and then you wake you all down, you're doing painting on Friday when you can just vibe with one thing.
Right.
Like that's exactly the opposite what he's saying at the end.
Right. No, so you're saying that maybe the totality of everything, but then there is one thing that's identifiable as being the key core totality of everything. That's what you're saying. Right.
Yeah, that's
I
what
agree.
Das Hashem is, the totality of everything, and therefore you can access it. You can access that thing. Yeah.
But that's a question though. If it's the totality of everything, maybe you can't access it except for going through everything. There's an interesting question there. I don't think you should dismiss it. If it's
No.
the totality of everything, then maybe our path to it is inevitably to go through everything. And therefore, maybe we're having this conversation, we're just trying to jump ahead. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, let's go through something. Let's get somewhere instead of just talking about where we're going to get. We're not doing anything. That's it's an interesting argument. You see
I do.
the
I
merit?
do. But how would he and I'm great we're here. The let's say the theory of evolution, right? It's a great theory. It's one of the great ones, and it
Evolution.
took yeah, evolution.
Huh?
It took like Darwin. It took a lot of theories and unified them together,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
In psychology and biology and in a lot of theories. Why like would he is he still see a benefit in going and studying all the little details, or can you take the theory of evolution for granted?
So you're saying that I think where you're going is that even if you need to get somewhere through a bunch of little things, once you get there, you can drop all those little things and
Once you
say,
get there, you drop it. Exactly. Like,
okay,
and you have people
right,
use the theory of evolution now all the time because and they don't have to go the
right.
levels deeper of what evolution explains.
Got it. So you're saying is that we're looking for a deeper theory, and of course we should look for the deepest theory and what type of
Yeah.
arguments. So basically, very great analogy. Okay, fine, nice.
It's the greatest area. And once you have that,
Right.
you only take the best of what you got. I mean, there's no reason
Yeah.
to go deep.
Yeah, and I'll say also,
If
and this
you
I think your analogy holds for this as well. Once you sense the deeper theory and have some sort of sense of what it's about, then you can go back and go look for some little things that you may have missed because you could sometimes get to the deeper theory without, let's say there's 10 things that contribute to the deeper theory. You can only know eight of them, but still have a sense of the deeper theory. And then you could say, hey, now in light of this deeper theory, let me go back to some problems that we never fully solved and look how according to the
Yeah.
yeah.
Only
Okay.
go search at everything you didn't see before with those eyes.
Right, and you'll
You
see new
also
things.
can have a new appreciation by reviewing, and
Yeah.
going through.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I want to try to make sure we know where we are.
Someone that has a background of Darwin's theory, and then they're looking at a fossil or a mountain, whatever, or an organism,
Any organism, yeah.
a time lapse. It's like it's so much more beautiful.
Right.
So
Right.
in
Right.
retrospect,
Yes. Okay. So let's keep track where we're up to. So I'm just going back to the question you asked in the beginning, and I maintained there's two questions, and now we're mapping it out. The first question was, how come no one talks about this? And I was commenting about that. I wanted to bring in some feedback that we got and just talk about how I see that fitting into that question of why is this not something that everyone's been talking about for millennia? Well, let's say for the last 2 millennia, shall we? Okay, so one feedback was this thing about is there a point? That it's the totality of everything. Okay. Another person was raising the question um, that maybe Das Hashem is the result of the Messianic era and not the catalyst for it.
why do we need to talk about the Messianic era? I
Yeah, I
don't
know.
know.
What? You don't like talking about it. Why?
No, I like talking about it, but I think we don't need to. We have enough content. We're talking about Das Hashem. Like, why do we have to drag in other things that have always been controversial when we don't need to? We have
I'm with you. I'm with you.
We have an all-encompassing, amazing theory. Why do we need to start dragging it into everyone's schmutz because they want?
Excellent point. Thank you so much.
It
Great point. Maskim. So I want to rephrase the question.
has nothing to do with Mashiach. We're not talking about Mashiach.
I'm with you. We're not talking about Mashiach.
We can,
Fine.
right?
If Mashiach comes, we won't complain.
Talk about Mashiach, but
right, Mashiach only comes with Hesach Hadas. The Gemara says,
a different series
Fine.
for a different time.
Yeah, I actually would be fascinating to talk about that one day. I've been studying the Rambam and Mashiach, and this is really amazing stuff. But yeah. Okay, if Mashiach comes because of our efforts, we won't complain, but we're not talking about Mashiach per se. Fine.
Unless it comes in as a question. Yeah.
I understand. Right. Okay. So let's phrase it like this. When Yeshaya Hanavi talks about Malach ha'aretz de'es Hashem, his vision, is that a vision of what kind of paradigm or theory or way of thinking is going to cause an era of blessedness and world peace? Or is it the result of the era? In other words, and to put it together with another comment this person sent, this is a message from Hashem. When the Navi talks about Das Hashem, so Hashem wants to tell us something. So what does Hashem want to tell us? Does Hashem want to tell us, do what we're doing now? Talk about it? Or is he telling, one second, or is he telling us that, by the way, this is the blessed state that you'll end up in? Okay, that's
Can I clarify the question?
Yes, of course. For sure.
Okay. When it says in Yeshaya, and please, I don't want to say the psukim in front of, I don't, but it says something along the lines of the land will be filled with Das Hashem and everything will be lovely and amazing.
Right.
Okay. So are we saying that when so either everything will be lovely and amazing, we'll finally be able to understand Hashem, or is us understanding Hashem going to cause everything to be lovely and amazing? Exactly. That's person's question.
Yes.
Question. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand. I don't like the question.
Because
why are you assuming that one has to cause the other? Why can't they both be coming in at the same time?
Okay, well, because the way I presented it in our previous conversation, I was arguing, and I know you gave me a lot of pushback on this. Yeah, which I appreciate, of course. No, seriously. I was arguing that given that there's this amazing thing that's right there in front of our eyes, in front of our noses, this teaching that's supposed to unlock the greatest human potential, we have to think about how is it going to unlock human potential.
Yeah.
Wait, let me finish my sentence. Wait. we have to think about how it's going to unlock human potential so that we can explain it to people, so that we can make this something that people want to pursue, etc. So remember now, I presented it that way, and that's where he's asking, like, how do I know that the Navi is teaching it that way? And to preempt your objection, forgive me, let me finish, and then I want
Yeah,
to hear
yeah.
your point.
Listen.
If the Navi is telling us this, he's teaching us this message from Hashem so that we should implement it, so that we should earn a perfect world, then that's our mitzvah. You can't say, oh no, let's not do it for the, in order to achieve the good things. I think we had this conversation last time also a little bit. I was telling you, if the Torah itself is telling us do this in order to perfect the world, then of course we have to understand how it perfects the world and teach that it will perfect.
First of all, I think in general with these psukim, what's lovely about your theory and the way that you approach them is that whenever we come up to a pasuk in Tanakh, and I've been trained like this through my wonderful yeshivas, is what does this pasuk mean? And it can mean a million things, none of which is what the words say. And I think what's amazing with your pshat is that it just means what the words say. Now, Das Hashem means Das Hashem, knowledge of Hashem, and so many of these things. And I think that what's wrong? Why can't? What does it say that it has to be for the purpose? Does it say that we have to achieve Das Hashem? We're commanded by God to achieve Das Hashem so that everything is perfect. Does it say that?
Not explicitly, but that may be the implication. It may be the implication.
All I've saw from your psukim, and please quote more, is that these things will exist in tandem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a key.
That's all I see, and that's all I believe. I'm not taking more than that to cause problems and ask questions.
Right. Okay. So there is a word key in the pasuk because, which I'll tell you exactly what the pasuk says, and then we analyze that word for a minute.
It can mean many things.
I know. Very good. If there's one thing you learned, okay, yeah. But we'll get to that key. Key isn't kaf yud, Hebrew. There's also a contradiction in the Rambam about this, by the way, about whether Das Hashem is the result of the wonderful, fantastic times or the catalyst. There is actually a contradiction about that. Rambam seems, but the pasuk goes like this. Let's just put the pasuk out there. Lo yareu v'lo yashchisu v'garza evim keves. Okay, the wolf and the lamb will lie together, etc. Lo yareu v'lo yashchisu b'chol hakachi. They won't.
This is the one with the only psukim with my name in it.
What?
Zayd.
Ah,
Zayd, yeah.
very nice. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. This pasuk brackets the last parak in Mishnah Torah. The beginning of the last parak of the Rambam talks about this pasuk, and then the end. He ends with the end of the pasuk, or really a passage. Kimal Tzdeas Hashem.
The beginning of Mishnah Torah.
Huh?
The beginning of Mishnah Torah and the
no,
end.
The last parak, the beginning and end of the last parak. The first halach and the last parak talks about what the meaning is of the wolf will lie with the lamb, and how it's a mashal for saying that the nations won't harm Yisrael. Okay. And then it says, they won't do evil in my holy mountain, the Harbayas. Oh, so let's see. They won't do perpetrate evil in the Harbayas. So there will be world peace because. But yes, maybe it means rather.
Yeah, we can do we can analyze the pasuk. I don't want to do that right now unless you think there's really compelling reason to say it has to be read like that, or it should be, or
I don't, and I agree with you. I don't want to analyze. Yeah.
We discussed in I think it's a great mashal, but we discussed with Oria today in the Chabura, this topic, not specifically this, but let's say the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution, like which one came first? Okay. Like what came first? Like rebelling against the church or scientific revolution or realizing the holes in the church's theology? Which one came first?
Okay.
I think it's equally as hard to make an argument for either of them. And I think the same thing is true with Das Hashem. Like with you saying Das Hashem's going to be great and everything's going to be great, is you're not going to be able to make it strong.
I love that, but I think he's raising a good point because I guess this gets back to my approach here. That if I was looking at it like as this will cause that, and therefore let's focus on this, and so then I think you're saying his point is valid. Like I shouldn't look at it as A will cause B, and therefore let's talk about A being Das Hashem and B being Lo Yerev Lo Yashchisu. Rather, I should understand this as one big package. Okay, not to put too fine a point
It's
on it.
also can be. It's also right. It's also wait. Hold on. It's also just predictive.
Right.
Like he's just predicting what's gonna be.
I know, but that's where he's raising a good point. It's a message from Hashem predicting what's going to be. Why did the Nevi'im tell us what's going to be? Isn't it in order to give us direction of how to put it into practice? I think so.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's a reason why we have to know the future. It gets to the question of why the 12th principle of faith, which is that there will be a redemption. Why is that a principle of faith? Because some Sefer says it's not. He says even if
What?
Hashem, because some Sefer says he doesn't agree with the Rambam because he
That
says
what?
even that redemption Mashiach. No. Wait, let me be clear. He believes that Mashiach will come. He says it's not one of the fundamentals of faith, meaning he doesn't believe he doesn't believe that the belief in the coming of Mashiach is an integral part of Judaism, and that a person's not a Jew if he not considered Yisrael if he doesn't believe it. Because he says, what does it have to do with the fundamentals of Judaism? Even if Hashem won't redeem us, we still have to serve him.
Okay.
Yeah, which is an interesting argument, but we have to
I
understand.
totally hear that.
Of course we do, but the Rambam is saying is that oh, very nice, but the fact is Hashem will redeem us, and the fact that he will redeem us is actually part of what Judaism is. It's a very weird argument that some Sefer is making, because there is no such Judaism. Whatever.
Well,
It doesn't
yeah.
right, you see where I'm going?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no, so I'm saying even it might have to do with the question we just asked, which is that the knowledge of the future, is it just, hey, cool, we know the future, or is it giving us direction?
Well, it of course is giving us direction.
Right. So there you go. So that's
But every generation of Jews had plenty of characters, which we might be our version of, that thought that they had the key, and they were wrong.
Okay.
In their own lifetimes.
And we very like that wrong as well. Right.
So just because it is doesn't mean you're doing it, you know, in the right way. And I think that I think that that's a predictive one. That's a predictive verse. I mean, you have so many verses that give Musar because people didn't know Hashem, and they stopped and they forgot about Hashem, and they were punished for forgetting about Hashem and this and this and this.
Right.
Those are much more, and the chiyuv to know Hashem, and this is when he gives Musar to Klal Yisrael for not doing it. That's a psukim I look at. The fact that he says these two things will exist. I don't understand why that's.
Well, I think those go together. In other words, the Nevi'im's insistence that you have to be a Deus Hashem, and the Nevi'im's prediction about the future, the glorious future, when there will be Deus Hashem, go together. The reason why they're telling us to be a Deus Hashem is because they're supporting that by showing us here's what the world could be if we had Deus Hashem. So I don't see those as really very different things. In other words, the prediction about the future is there to exhort us and to make us recognize how important this is. And therefore, it could be prescriptive.
What personally drives you, and you feel free not to answer, to discuss Hashem and chase Das Hashem? What's your personal motivation?
No, I can't not answer that. You should not let me not answer that. It's such a good question. No way. No way. I'm saying that because I don't want to answer, obviously.
Oh, no, you're not answering.
No, I don't want to answer, but I should because it's a good question. No, I'm not sure why I don't want to answer even. I don't know. It's too personal. No, I just, okay, so this is what I was trying to express last conversation, that I just have this very deep belief, like they convinced me, the Nevi'im, that they were really onto something, and that this is the key to unlocking human success. I know you don't like human success, but I do. And
no, I love human success. I love it. It's our job. I get it.
Right. There you go. So that's it. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. No, and I think that there's something there that is key and has been overlooked. I think that it's something that I'm struck by that message that this could be the key to everything. And B, since it's overlooked and I don't see people talking about it, I feel like, hey, this is something I should do. I think it's something very important to do. Okay, that's my short answer. I think I may have interrupted you there. Sorry. You remember saying something?
Oh, you didn't. Okay. Das Hashem, to bring us back, I think Das Hashem you can make an argument that it causes everything in the world to be good, and I can argue that you'll only really realize Hashem after everything in the world is good.
Yeah, that's a very interesting.
Why is Das Hashem important? Because I mean, if you asked in the Nevi'im why, I would say because we're commanded to do it. And when we didn't do it, things get worse. The more individuals there are that know Hashem, the things are better.
Good. There you go. I'm with
Things
you.
are better. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
But
basically, it's like you're saying that we have to have a sense of the theory that pulls it all together because that way we'll be attracted to doing all the good things that are
all
part
right,
of
well,
it, right?
you go to the doctor. Let's say someone really unhealthy goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, the guy's 300 pounds and has all these kinds of problems and smokes and everything like that. And okay, and the doctor shows him, he's not going to show him a picture. I'm giving you much, but I'm sorry for it. But he's not going to show him a picture. If he shows him a picture of a front page of the magazine, men's model magazine, of a super jacked guy, this guy's going to laugh and walk out of the place. It's a joke. Why? Who cares? Who needs that? Who does it help? What are you proving to yourself that you can do a theoretical exercise and show that this is possible? Okay, but you show the guy that his vitals are bad, and if you stop smoking for 2 weeks, your lungs will be on the graph this much better, and next week and you'll lose 5 pounds at a time. So why?
The
When you
Nimshal, could you just take it to
Mashiach,
Nimshal?
when you talk about Das Hashem, when you talk about Das Hashem and you're telling people about it and why they should study it, you sound crazy when you talk about Mashiach and Yomahu and everything's gonna be perfect. You just have to bear with me. Everything's gonna be perfect. No, I can't make everything perfect. The world's crazy now. We're 300 pounds and we're smoking. So why? Okay, between you and me, behind closed doors, like that's great discussion. But
Okay.
no, like that's not the reason why you should study Das Hashem is because it's wonderful and it makes your life better and it makes everyone's life a little bit better.
Very
And
good.
you want to see, just prove it to me. And as practical applications, every area of your life will be better.
Right.
Your mental health will be better the more that you tap in here.
Yes.
Okay. That's
100%.
conceivable. That's
And your physical
understandable.
health, and your physical health, and everything else
It's
is
not going
good.
to turn
Like,
people on to
yeah.
say, that Gar Zev and Zav in Keves is not going to turn people on. You have to be
That's
crazy.
which people though? See, I don't agree with you.
It didn't turn people on for a long time. It does. It does. But not to get them in the door. For
Got
sure
it. Okay.
not.
That gets to the third question of last week. How do we get this out the door, right? Or get the people in. That's the third question, right? How do we market this? Whatever. But we're still very important to me that we keep track of where we're at. We started with two questions. With you asked a question, which I said was two questions. Yeah. Can I go
So
back?
why they forgot it? Why the Olam forget this? Why they
Correct.
stop talking to Hashem?
Correct.
Why is Torah mitzvahs take such a
You hear a lot about Torah mitzvahs. You hear next to nothing about Das Hashem.
Someone did one of my professors did he's an AI class. He talked about how he did his paper on the Googling of words, right? People do this on the Googling of words, the amount of the uptick in deterrence in the newspapers, the word deterrence after Hiroshima and Nagasaki
Mm.
in so if you track the word usage of Torah mitzvahs and Hashem in the Olam HaCharedi or the Olam the Torah world, the Yeshivish world, where do you
Nice.
go?
Right.
And
And
also the
that,
non-Yeshivish world.
of course,
I guess where did they? Were they with it the whole time or no? And no one was listening.
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Right. So we have Das Hashem is going to have like a little uptick over there in 2025.
And I want to say for the recorders, the Rav Shach picture.
The what?
I want to just say that for the people that are listening to the recording, because I sent it to you, that the picture of Rav Shach at the dais. There's a picture. If you watch it, you don't have to look so hard on YouTube. But there's a picture of Shach. I was listening to him give his shir, and there's a big sign Torah under it. Torah. And it was just the Yanuka now speaks with Yud Ke Vav Ke. So you have this, Torah mitzvahs, Torah. Do it for the Torah. No one talks about Hashem. So why?
Right.
So
By the way, it's interesting to think about, and this is something I don't know that much about, but that in a certain sense, I think Hasidus was like onto this problem and like trying to bring it back. And
they
that relates. What?
yeah.
Yeah, and that
They speak
relates
about
to
Hashem.
what's that?
They speak about Hashem a lot. There's a lot of
Yeah.
Hashem.
Yeah. And there are those who say, like the Piasetzna and others, that like Hasidus was there to bring back continue the ways of the Nevi'im. So then if we identify the ways of the Nevi'im as Das Hashem, then really I'm just like neo Hasidic.
Hmm.
Okay,
Neo post neo Hasidic.
we have to come up with a new word, but we're gonna have a new word for this movement. It's gonna be a completely new word. Um, okay, so that was the first part of the question, and the reason why I raised the feedback from various people was because I saw that as related to that question. Why? Because what I'm hearing from people who are like the various questions about Das Hashem, is it the totality of everything, or is Das Hashem really the means, or is it the result? Which are great questions and a lot to think about there. But I got a certain feeling of a sort of a resistance to talking about Das Hashem as an independent thing, which I attribute just in terms of psychologically to the fact that it hasn't been the subject for discussion, and therefore I think there's an automatic feeling on when people hear such a new concept to sort of fit it into what they knew already, instead of saying, "Hey, maybe this is really something that should demand all my attention when I've been giving my attention elsewhere." Right? So
100%.
and not to accuse anyone. I'm Chas Shalom, not, I just want to make
100%.
it clear. I'm not like, it was great
100%.
questions and
And
thoughtful questions.
they're traumatized because anybody that opened up their mouth to talk about any of the matters related to anything regarding this over the last 1,000 years that wasn't repeating what the Gadol Adar said was punished.
No, what do you mean by that?
They were ostracized.
Nah.
Why not?
Who was ostracized? Come on. Okay, I don't
Someone
want to talk.
started talking about the Yod Gimel Ikari Amuna.
I hear
If
it.
somebody started talking about it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, people are very touchy about this because
They
that's the
are.
one thing we have is the Yud Gimel Ikari Amuna. You can't,
Right.
you're borderlining on this stuff. It's a problem, and then you
Right.
get shut down very quickly.
Right. So you're safer just retreating into cliches. You're much safer.
Exactly. And that's what people do. I mean, I personally felt this on both ways. I was an attacker when I was in yeshiva. Whenever somebody opened up their, I cannot never had any room for any wiggle room on the Yud Gimel Ikari and Muna. Like everything else you can talk about, but not that.
Okay.
And I think if you just look in throughout history, I mean, people were punished because you used to have a strong elite. You used to have a strong center. Now there's no threat. I mean, no one's gonna.
Yeah, and also, I think there has been, maybe because there's no center, there has been much more of a widening of the discussion and openness to talking about all sorts of things, even among the most strongholds of classic Torah learning have spread out to learn, Kabbalah, Machshava, right? That's been happening.
Sure. That's probably why, honestly, I'm a victim. That's probably why we're here right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had that written down, is that there's no opposition. No one knows. First of all, no one knows anything anymore.
Everyone knows everything. Stop.
Everyone knows everything.
Okay.
But not always as they should.
Not the same depth. Not with great depth.
It would be hard. What?
Not with great depth. Right.
Right. I think the people that have surpassed so many people have surpassed the status quo of like what's appropriate to say. So many people that have surpassed that because they've developed material and ideas that are beyond that account for that. And the ideas of the establishment can't attack others. They don't know. There's not the establishment's codex doesn't have a command of nach that you do per se. That if you were to say something, that they would be able to or of the Mar Nevuchim and things like that. You don't have and you don't have single figures that are so
right. You
just don't have it.
Right. So then you ask that question. So of course we have to get to that. That's an amazing question, and I think about that a lot. But you also then segued into something which I saw as a different question, and I said it's a contradictory question. I want to explain why I said that. Because you asked, we love Hashem. We have a mitzvah to love Hashem and to serve Hashem, and you can't love that which you don't know. That's the last Rambam in the first book of Mishnah and Sefer Mada. Al pi adei, al pi ha'ava. According to the knowledge is the love. You can't love that which you're not familiar with. Right?
End of Mada.
End of Mada. Last Rambam Mada says, Al pi adei, al pi ha'ava. And in fact, in the Mar Nevuchim, he says the mitzvah of Havtas Hashem Lekecha is the mitzvah to study Chachmas, because that's how you get to know Hashem. V'havta.
Mitzvah v'hafta is to study.
To study wisdom. Is to study reality.
The Sefer Mitzvahs?
No. In the Meir.
Okay. To study reality.
Hmm?
Uh-huh.
Let me just check because I don't want to misrepresent it. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it right now.
Oh, look something up also.
Hmm?
Look up something also. I mean,
Ahava al pi amidas hahasaga. There's one place he says it, that love is according to how much you know.
no, also the Rambam that says Echi derech ahava.
Right,
B'shas sheis bainain.
right,
Oh, b'shas sheis bainain. You're
sure.
saying in the books.
Right
It's
there,
funny how
because
you
she's pointed.
that.
You have to look at reality, right?
Yeah. I just it's he when I heard you say it, I thought you were saying reading books in the library.
Well, I mean, those help you be misbeinen.
What?
Those
Oh,
help
you're
you
not
think.
wrong. You're not wrong. But I read it I guess when I was younger, but when I read it, I automatically thought it was like going to
Walks
the
in the
Alps,
forest.
see the Alps,
Right.
going to look at beautiful things.
Yes.
Uh,
Could you read that halacha, by the way? Because that bears a lot on your question. You mind reading it?
which one?
When you started reading B'Shashi's Bainin?
I'm not. I don't have it.
Okay, fine. So he says,
But
what's the path to
where
loving
is it? I
God?
have the Safari open here.
Okay,
Mishnah
so it's
show.
Yisodei Torah Perek Beis halacha Aleph.
Okay. Hakel nichbud v'hanoira. Hazeh mitzvah la'ahavai. Lira isai. Shnemer v'yahaftes Hashem l'kecha. Es Hashem l'kecha tira. V'hechi derech lahavasai v'yirasa. B'shashi yispainin ha'adam. B'maisa v'rov v'nefloim ha'gedalim v'yira mehem chachmasai. She'ein la erech. V'leiketz miyad hu ayev u'mishabech u'mefar u'misavet taiva gedala leida Hashem ha'gadol.
Amazing. So you see how he defines love.
Hashem David tzamach nafshi le'lekim le'kelchan.
You see how he defines the mitzvah of Ava as a desire to know. Isn't that interesting?
וכשמחשב בדבר האלו עצמן, מיד הוא נרתע לאחר, ויפחד בידע שהוא בריאה קטנה שפלה ואפלה ומדס בדס קלה מעוטה לפני תמים דייס. Yeah.
Here's the passage in the Meir, by the way. I'll read it in English. Regard to all the correct opinions concerning the whole of being. Opinions that constitute the numerous kinds of all the theoretical sciences, etc., etc. The Torah, although it does not make a call to direct attention to them in detail, does so in summary fashion by saying, V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha. We already explained that this Ava becomes valid only through the apprehension of the whole of being as it is, and through the consideration of his wisdom as it is manifested in it, in being. So the mitzvah of Ahavta is the Torah's call to know reality. So your question was that loving Hashem means we know him. And I'm just pointing out an interesting thing in the Rambam, that he defines the mitzvah of loving Hashem as a desire to know him. So it's not an assuming that you know him, but it's a movement towards knowledge. It's a his iris towards knowledge. Okay? Just pointing that out. Yeah,
Service towards knowledge.
Love is the desire to know. That's what he says.
Love is the desire to know, but know and knowledge are not necessarily the same.
Know is the verb. Knowledge is the noun. Of course, it's the same.
I meant yediyah and knowledge and knowing.
Oh, okay, fine. Right. To be familiar. Right. Das is not knowledge. Right. It's not quite knowledge. But the das, Leda. Das Hashem. Right? Misava Leda.
How do you best translate das and das Hashem?
Familiarity.
Familiarity.
Or experience. Or experience. I don't know if there's one good English word that covers it. Because you have a Adam Yoda Eschava Ishtay, which people think is a euphemism. It's not a euphemism. It means he had experience of Chava. You know this thing, like the King James
Sorry,
Bible?
I was spacing out. I was no, because I was the Rambam where he says that you should Deus Gimel Gimel. He says
Everything should be directed towards Das Hashem. Everything should be towards Das Hashem.
Everything, yeah. I just always think about it and have
that's amazing. Right. I mean, that gets to the question of Torah, right? He says everything is for Das Hashem. Rambam says this. You know, the question you were saying about Torah was it Torah Das Hashem? Torah is downstream of Das Hashem. That's the Rambam says that, not me.
Yeah.
Right? Says that.
I
Right?
signed up
right
for
there. No,
Gimel.
What?
I signed up. I know I signed up for I was signing up for Aleph Beta today because I wanted to see some videos of his over by Foreman. And one of the questions was why are you signing up? Or why are you learning? You know, and the answer is because I wanted to just know some of the Tanakh stories that I never learned before. But one of the answers was to know Hashem better or something, to be closer to Hashem. And I had to pick it.
Of course.
I lied.
Pass up. Very good. Okay, so okay, let's get back to where we're holding. So I'm arguing just to clarify, man, is that and then I really like to try to get to an answer to your question. But I just wanted to differentiate. I think you asked two questions there. You asked how come people don't talk about this, and you also ask that everyone's doing this as it is because they're doing Avos Hashem. So just it seems to me those are two contradictory questions because either no one's talking about this or everyone is talking about it, or they're doing it already.
It's not opposite questions. It's the same question.
Right.
The same question. The question would be.
No, the second question was, why am I making such a fuss? Aren't we doing this already?
It's a mamanavsha.
Yeah, walk me through this. My head's
Hashem is what we already have and understand.
Ah, good. Okay. Thank you.
And we're doing our mitzvahs and we're fine.
And if it's something new,
if it's a completely new revolutionary thing, so where the heck has everybody been?
Amazing. Okay. I love it. Thank you. So let's clarify. You nailed it. Okay, that's great. If someone's going to say Avos Hashem depends on Das Hashem, which the Rambam says that, not this Rambam we read. Here the Rambam says it's a taiva to know. In the end of Hilchos Tshuva, the last halach, he says, according to your knowledge is your love. The passage of the Moreh that I read says the same thing. Okay, so if Avos Hashem assumes Das Hashem, then say it. We're doing it already. Why do I have to talk? Why do I have to make up a new term? Das Hashem. I want to talk about Avos Hashem. I want to talk about being misbeinen in the world. Okay, let's do that. People have done that already, and we can continue doing that. Right? And that's, in a way, brings me back to that comment of let's just learn all the chachmas. By the way, you see how it's a little bit like that question. Like, okay, we know. Zayda, go learn chachma. And if it is something to talk about independently, how come no one talked about it, or not so much, except for Cardozo, which say that I don't know much about him, but Lamaisa, we want the mainstream people to have been talking about it, right? That's the kasha.
Since I guess Chasimus Talmud.
What, that it hasn't been discussed?
That's what Rosenstock said. Yeah. I didn't know exactly where it went. This guy that wrote the paper that I was reading.
Yeah, since Chasimus Talmud, what?
I was reading about Cardozo.
Oh, since Chasimus Talmud, what?
He's saying that since it was basically since Chasimus Talmud, since since then that the Rishonim shifted the narrative from Hashem to something else.
That's so interesting. I would have
or toward a different.
You should know. I would put it at the end of the Mishnah.
What? At the end of the Mishnah, maybe that's what he wrote. I don't know. Maybe it's what he wrote.
I don't know who this guy is.
Why? Like when I'm reading the Mishnayos, I don't see much Das Hashem talk.
Guess who said the following? Okay. Gemar bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha lo das es durachoi v'lishkoid al dasei teirasi. Shemar picha mikol chet V'taher v'kadesh atzmecha mikol ashma v'avoin, v'ani eya imcha b'chol mokin. Okay, now we'll say it in English. So who said, study Gemara, like complete your study with all your heart and all your soul to know my ways and to diligently be on the doors of my Torah, the Beis Medrash. Watch your mouth from any sin and sanctify and purify yourself from any iniquity, and I will be with you everywhere. It's a beautiful.
Was that is that a Rav Nosson, is the beginning of the tefillah that
Which
people
tefillah?
say? No, it sounds like it's a tefillah people say before they learn.
No, it's a tefillah. It's in the list of the tefillahs and brachas of different people would say after Shemoneh Esrei. And this is Rameir's. This is Rameir, the author of the Mishnah, Stam Mishnah Rameir. I mean, not the author, but Stam Mishnah Rameir. This was Rameir's thing. Gemar b'chol levav b'chol nafsh b'chol das es drachai. And notice he puts that first also. Isn't that amazing?
Beautiful.
Is it beautiful? It's like you need another maxim for life. Like that's it. Just
beautiful. What's the where is it?
Brachas Daf Yud Zayin, I think it's Daf Yud Zayin.
Okay. Yeah. So we're post Mishnah.
That's what I think. So let's talk about. Okay, now that we analyze the question, thank you. We clarified the questions really on one question. Great. Now I want to give you my answer. What I think.
The Dark Ages. What we'll call the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. What happened in the Middle Ages?
I'll tell you what happens to something. I'll tell you what happens. An idea that cannot be put into practice tends to wither and die. And that's because people cannot can't fall in love with a notion that they cannot execute. They have no choice. I'll give you an analogy. Why was Eretz Yisrael not the center of discourse till Yehuda Levi wakes up and says, let's go back? Because it couldn't be. Because how could you imagine a bunch of Yehuda Levis running around for 1,000 years, dying for Eretz Yisrael, writing love poetry to Eretz Yisrael, drunk, intoxicated on the Shechina in Eretz Yisrael. They would go crazy. Like, what are we doing? How do you live in Gullus and you just have this idea that's making you mad? So Yehuda Levi went mad from this idea, and he was able to go or not, whatever that legend was. But at least it was something he could talk about in a practical way. If there wouldn't have been the possibility for Yehuda Levi to practically go to Eretz Yisrael, he would also not have been able to talk about it. You can't fall in love with a notion that is completely impossible to implement. And that is my theory, which I submit to you for your able criticism, why Das Hashem had to go a little bit underground. Because since it's a notion that's all encompassing and redemptive, and I'm not talking about Mashiach, just it's a notion that takes the right conditions to be able to be meaningful. And when you're under Shibud Malchias, if you don't have freedom and you're stuck in a certain system, it becomes non-implementable. And therefore, it's not something you can't live with it. You're forced to, by human nature, to focus on other things. And that other thing can be Torah, because Torah is very concrete. So you can even talk about the derech to love Hashem, because of study. But just to talk about this as this all-encompassing notion, if there's no way you could even start dreaming about being a reality, is not a condition human beings are capable of living in.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you. I had this little glimpse of a hara, now that you say this, of like Hashem says, I'm gonna hide myself. I'm gonna hide myself from you guys. And the teretz is he did a good job. He's good. He's a good at hide and seek. Yeah.
Wow. I think I had that thought also once, that it's exactly what he said. He's gonna hide. Yeah, I think I had the same thought.
He did. He couldn't find him.
He hides through reality, through the facts and the world, the mitzvahs being such that he doesn't come to our minds in the same way that he's supposed to. Of course, chas v'shalom, not to minimize the avodas Hashem of thousands of years. And I'm saying there's a
Of
certain
course,
mitzvahs
of
of,
course.
yeah, no, I was trying to state that, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's a Hester, right? And Hester means it's not in the forefront of our minds. And it can't be, like you said, right? It can't be. Hashem is manipulating things such that it can't be. Yeah.
It was necessary. It was necessary.
That he be hidden.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the question is why it's necessary. Okay, that's a whole different question.
it was necessary. I'll give it like a little. Sometimes you see fundamentalists so silly, okay, doing silly things, and it's easy to laugh at them. People, real radical religious people, either Jewish or not Jewish, radical, and it's silly, and it's easy to make fun. But then you think, and to get away from the touchy stuff, my friend said this about, like, he was complaining about in India about the Hindus, that the radical ones, and I was like, they're silly now, but the reason that the religion still exists is because of the radicals. When the people come to murder, when the Muslims come to murder, or the Christians come to murder, everyone who are the ones that hide and sacrifice? It's the ones that are silly. Yeah, so you need that. So Lamashal.
So what's your shtel? Similarly, I don't know. I'm not sure I know what you're saying.
What?
So similarly,
this is all being developed now, but I want to say that maybe like the way that the type of Yiddishkeit that Klal Yisrael lived was necessary to bring it through the Galus. Lamashal, like, it's very simple. If you see Torah in Rav Shach's Bima and you say, why doesn't it say Hashem? Why does it say Torah? Obviously, it's Hashem, but that's not tangible. Only the Torah is tangible. Hashem's, like you said, not tangible right now. It's not a message that will resonate and work practically for our people. So Torah is the message there now.
Right. Right.
And when you have things going boom, 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 like when you when you're in the Galus and you're moving around and getting trampled on and punished, you need something that's easier to grasp and easier to hold on to. Something more, I guess even the little details of halacha.
You're saying a different point than me, which is not to it's a different.
Well, I mean, I don't know what I'm saying right now.
A little bit of a different track. No, I was saying that ideas have to be practical. If they're not practical, they're forgotten. Right. No, you're saying a little bit of a different point. You're saying that by its very nature, the idea of Das Hashem is harder to hang on to than, let's say, lesser ideas or more concrete ideas. And therefore, we had to focus on more concrete things.
Well, at the time,
when we were under persecution. Right. No, I understand.
At the time. Yeah.
Right. No, but I say the way you're presenting it, even if Das Hashem was possible, since we needed something that will have more staying power or robustness or being impervious.
We needed something more practical, something that would have lasted. Something
right. No,
that
I'm saying
and therefore would have lasted.
Right. No, I understand, but I'm suggesting that more than that. I'm saying Das Hashem was simply cannot be done. Simply cannot be done, at least not in its fullest.
Because it wasn't practical.
Yeah. Correct.
How is that not? How am I missing? What am I missing?
No, because I thought you were stressing a point there that even two equal things, both let's say, are equally practical. When you're under persecution, you want to focus on the one that's more concrete.
I don't want to limit it to just persecution. I want it just persecution. The time, everything about the time.
Yeah.
Persecution, but even just everything about it, all of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's forces in that time didn't allow for the practicality of Das Hashem.
Yeah.
It had to find practicality in other emestika forms.
Correct. 100%. Yeah. And this, by the way, yeah.
It came out on top. Meaning your understanding of Das Hashem, I don't want to make assumptions, but you came from this world. This world produced you. So even if you're holding this broad idea, which is correct, it flew through the Europe, I guess.
For sure.
Europe for through you, and then it came in a package now, and that
Right.
it can release itself. But
Sure.
it only survived because of the form that it took on. So it was divine.
Absolutely.
No disrespect to the earlier people. The opposite.
It
Only
was
full
to
respect.
what? Could you repeat the last thing you said? It was what?
I mean, I'm saying this to express, although it's so evolutionary, there's no disrespect. It's the opposite about the earlier generations.
Sure.
This is only coming from a brilliant packaging of the MS by those generations and generations of
Correct.
Rabbani,
That's right.
in how they were able to pass through in
Right.
their that it could
Right.
come out on the other side.
That's right. And by the way, many of them may have also been deliberate and conscious of of selecting what they're focusing on. I'm not merely saying, something that happens to them. It's like I'm sure that they were great thinkers who were like, who are selective about what they're going to talk about for this.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great question, though. Putting yourself in their shoes, like when Hashem is hidden, how much do you know about the hidden? Like
Right.
what?
Yeah.
There was always going to be an element of deliberate and also an element of not deliberateness.
Yeah.
Always is.
Yeah. And even the not deliberate element is right there, right below deliberate, because it's like a given. It's a given that you can't do certain things. There's not being manipulated. It's like, yeah, you're reacting to reality, which is what you should do.
Right. 100%. So this is how I would want to say that the Rambam would fit into how I said, the Rambam. This is how I guess you'd fit into the Rambam. Let's say not talking expressly about it is Das Hashem, is he was under this spell, but at the same time, and okay, I want to give him more credit. It could be that some were more deliberate than others, and it could be even you had a few Yechidim that knew Hashem, but knew to keep it to themselves. Okay, that's possible too. I don't deny it. Maybe. And why not?
I'm just thinking about the Gemaras about the Gemara in Sanhedrin, that there was someone who was worthy of being a Navi, but his generation wasn't worthy of it. That just reminded me of that. Like, kind of person, can you have an individual who's breaks out of his his generation, and achieves prophecy, which is what the Gemara is talking about, which is arguably the just the apex of Das Hashem.
We have to get to prophecy one day.
We do have to get to prophecy. We have to get to prophecy.
Well, I mean to discussing it.
Oh yeah, of course.
And another raya is that nothing contradicts.
What do you mean?
While Judaism took on this whole crazy form from the Nevi'im to and comes out on the other side, there's no problems and contradictions.
I agree with you 100%.
They're not attacks, the questions. They're interesting questions, but there's none of them as there's no steeras here. There's no problems. There's no holes.
You mean the questions that we got back from people?
The question of, how come no one said this before? Right?
Right. It's an interesting question. It's not like,
how come no one said it before? Like, how come no one said it like you is like, it's a good question if there comes out a nafkamina, that's a problem. But like, if everything just fits better.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. No, it doesn't bother me. Right.
Everything's just better. And then
look, there is a tension. Right. No, there is a tension which relates to what you just said, which is that as people who are following the Messiah, meaning we believe that there's revelation and there's value in learning from the Nevi'im, from the Torah, there's always a tendency to conservatism and not to come and say, with a revolutionary idea. So like, how do you, even introducing something new or something that wasn't the focus, it's difficult to do that while at the same time honoring what came before you. I mean, it's not difficult for me personally. It's not. I don't have the tension. If you see myself, I'm very comfortable with
right.
And with my fealty to the Messiah.
I'm sure that you do have, though. You can shake it off, but nobody's perfect, right? I'm sure you are conservative in a way that you shouldn't be because of that. Like you're not held back to their extent, but in your own way, you are held back because of that.
No question about it. For sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I agree with that. And I work on
Me
look,
too.
even having this conversation is something I had to reach, that being comfortable enough to have conversations like this was like it's a chiddush. It relates to what I said earlier in the conversation
Of
that
course.
10 years ago I wouldn't talk about this so much. By the
Right?
way, is there a lot of background noise because there's a gardener
No,
doing
I
his
don't
Das
have.
Hashem? Okay, fine.
Um,
So I just want to say
but
one thing. Maybe we should think about wrapping this up. But I want to just one comment about. I feel like we should talk about this. I said Das Hashem and politics go together, and this relates to the thing I was saying that they couldn't do Das Hashem when we're in Galus. Like, why not? So what is the nature of this Hester? Right? Okay, Hashem is hiding. Well, in what sense? Um, Here's my theory of it. This is like a whole nother conversation. I feel like, well, let me just put it out there that, and this I can quote Sukkim about this also. Das Hashem is only achievable when you could implement the goodness of Hashem. You have to have the independence and the power to create a just and good order of society in order to have Das Hashem. Das Hashem cannot exist in your mind. It exists because it's an experience. Like we said before, Das means familiarity or experience. It's not an intellectual thing. You can prove Hashem from today till tomorrow, but that's not Das Hashem unless you relate to it, unless it's familiar to you and you experience it. And the way you're experiencing it is because you bring the goodness of Hashem into the order of your world. So if you're
that's Gimel Gimel.
um,
That's Gimel Gimel, and you
I
saw the
don't,
Torah.
I don't think so. No,
No.
I'll tell you why in a minute. I'll tell you why. So just to complete my thought, and then I'll tell you why I think it's very different. So if you're under a regime where you don't have political independence and you can't create a political order that reflects the good that then you can't know it. You can't really know it. Okay, Gimel Gimel, just to correct you, it's in Chas Deus, not
Yeah,
Yisrael.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Gimel Gimel is very interesting because what the Rambam says over there, he says a very, very interesting thing, and this is in a way works against everything we've been talking about, I think. He says, okay, everything you do should be for the sake of Das Hashem. So what? So you should eat in order to be healthy, in order to do this, in order to that, so that you can study. See, what the Rambam is doing over there is saying the end of everything is thought, is contemplation. And this is a move that the Rambam does numerous places. One famous place where he does the opposite kind of move is at the end of the Mernevuchim,
What
where
do you
he says,
mean he's doing here day at
oh,
the end?
that everything is a means for thinking.
For everything's a means towards familiarity with Hashem.
Yes, but that means eat, not because eating is good, because we understand that Hashem made a world of goodness. Eat so that you could think. In other words, the way he says in Gimel Gimel, if you could think without eating, without sleeping, that would be better. He'd prefer that. It's all a means that you just want to do it.
Yeah, but I think the point is that Yasim Libai Sheyehi Gufay Shalom B'Chazik Kadesh Tiyeh Nafshi Yishara Ladas Es Hashem, and by Yasiming Es Libai, your act of eating will turn into a meaningful act of eating, kind of like somebody's mikdash coin.
Yeah. I thought he said, no, I don't think. See, I thought he's saying over there that it's only a means. It's purely a means. So it's not a Mikdash coin. A Mikdash coin is
Yeah,
when
because
human
that's how you
industry.
come at it.
What?
When you come at something with a means to an end of knowing Hashem, it makes you more present.
I know, but I don't think the
If I
Rambam.
do something as a means to an end, it makes me less if I do something as a means to an end, it makes me less present in the thing that I'm doing, except for Hashem. If I'm doing something for the means of knowing Hashem, it makes me more present in what I'm doing.
Fascinating
Otherwise,
observation.
David HaMelech is completely disassociated from this planet because he's never focused on anything that he's doing. He's just attributing everything to Hashem.
Yeah, okay, listen, that's a fascinating observation. But the way I take that, and this is, I think, different than the Rambam, I take that as if you understand the godly order, the Hashem order, the midas of Hashem, and therefore you are motivated to act in the same way, in alignment with them, then you are Yodei Hashem when you're eating, when you're waging war, when you're creating a just society, and so on. I don't see that what the Rambam is saying. That the Rambam is saying is create a just society because that's the most efficient. It will create the most possibilities for people to then contemplate Hashem or eat your lunch so that you can then go think. Not eat lunch because you understand why eating lunch is part of the divine order. Do you see to me, it's a very different. In other words, that's an
Never
apolitical
saw
Rambam.
it as different.
That's an
I never
anti-political.
learned the Rambam in the Myra. I only know this Rambam, and when I do remind myself of this Rambam before I eat, I contemplate how eating is in and of itself an act of Das Hashem.
I have to think about that. I have to understand that better.
And
This
that came to
Rambam is
me
one of the
naturally
anti-political Rambam.
from that,
What?
from him.
What did you say?
I think if you do something for the means of knowing Hashem, it feeds back.
Right. No, that's a very interesting thing. That's a very interesting phenomenon. I have to understand that better. Um, this Rambam to me seems like an anti-politics, one of the anti-politics Rambams. Meaning he's saying the end goal is contemplation, not politics, which is an old question in the philosophers and an old steer in the Rambam as well.
The end game.
Like, what's the highest end of a human? Is it to think or is it to act? Very big question. And the steers about that. And the Rambam, it's old machlekes between the philosophim. Philosophim means, in this case, Aristotle and Plato. And it steers in the Rambam. Okay, now we're getting to a whole different topic.
To act or to do.
Yeah, to act or to do. What's divine? Is divine thought, like the Rambam says in Aleph Aleph in Moreh Nevuchim? What's divine about the person is his mind, or is it divine to emulate God? Imitat Yodei. That's 354. Yeah, those are the beginning and end of the Moreh Nevuchim. What?
I don't know. What does Hashem do?
Right. He seems to do two things. He thinks and he does. I don't know. Right. That's a great question. What does Hashem do?
It's great.
But
I don't want to hold you if you have to go, but
no. I don't have to go, but I'm getting my mind is getting weary from all great thoughts.
I'm thinking about the Neuralink chips that they put in your head where you can do things by thinking. Yeah. The line is getting blurred. The line is getting you can already run a whole entire country from a laptop and a couch. Right? It's just the line of what doing is versus thinking is really blurred. It's getting blurred.
That's very interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. So that's like I would want to bring to that. That's a cool way to look at it. That there's a pasuk of Ein das Elokim ba'aretz, das Hashem ba'aretz. Where's that pasuk? Okay, ve'ein das Elokim ba'aretz. I think in Hosea. So das Hashem in the aretz, or Molah ha'aretz de'as Hashem, right? Aretz is the realm of activity. Right? Aretz is where we do things. We build houses, we work, we create. And when you bring Das Hashem into the Aretz, that's when thought and action somehow merge.
Yeah. Amazing. It's
interesting.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a stira. In other words, obviously, if the Rambam says both, that means he holds it's not a stira. And the Rambam great.
It seems that Hashem is running a world,
through thought, huh?
Through thought, maybe, but not through action or whatever. It seems to be not two separate things necessarily.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Stam Klal Gadol, the Rambam, just an interesting theory I might have to pursue one day. The Rambam highly recommends reading Al-Farabi. Al-Farabi was one of the Muslim philosophers and Mefarshim of Aristotle. And the Rambam wrote a letter to Shmuel ibn Tibon, the translator of the Meira, and he says everything that Al-Farabi writes is soilus nakia, fine flour. Amazing. The Rambam's Haskama.
What's his name?
Al-Farabi. Not so easy to find his books, even though he's one of the great classic Muslim philosophers. Huh?
Interesting.
I once looked in the library for Al-Farabi, and they said, like, I was online looking in the catalog, and like, did you mean Alpha Baby? So I'm just saying it's easier to find Alpha Baby than Alpha.
You this?
That's what the machine like spit back. Like, did you mean,
your Google?
No, I was on the library catalog.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because your own computer would know better.
Very good. So anyways, Al-Farabi has a book, one of his many books, is solving the contradictions between Aristotle and Plato, and showing how they're not really contradictions. And you know that the Rambam in the Hakdama to the Meira talks about the reasons for contradictions. The contradictions are a very important method of teaching. And I have this theory that a lot of the contradictions in the Rambam track on the contradictions between Plato and Aristotle, and he holds that they're both true, but they do look about different things or whatever. This is just a whole Yeah. For another.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so should we I
I
think this
said
is very good.
I wrote down a quick the on this idea I remember the Maral. He points out that they're just like the world is like a baby, is like a human. The human starts off when it's young, has all its physical strength, and as it gets older, it's smaller and small. It gets weak. It gets weaker and weaker, and then wiser and wiser. A human gets older and wiser, and that the Arba Malchias are the physical strength,
Wow. So
like
what?
Goliath, and Klal Yisrael is like a bear. They're like a bear, you know. And Klal Yisrael is like from Dan, he's commenting on Daniel,
Yeah.
and but Klal Yisrael is David HaMelech is the Chachma, and as the world evolves, the Chachma of David becomes more and more important, more powerful than the Arba Malchus, and you know,
It's like a human being that the wisdom becomes more important than the body as he ages. That's the analogy.
yeah, but and also because the knowledge builds on each other, right? You can the knowledge stays because you build tools and you build on each other. I mean, the strongest person, Goliath
Wow.
today was only just as strong as Goliath, but the David sling of today is better than the David sling of then because it goes
Very
on
nice.
each other. So
Technology has
it
that feature.
keeps
Okay.
going. This one keeps going weaker and
Cool,
weaker.
cool, cool. Very
Yeah,
nice. Okay, so
whatever.
I think we learned a lot in this conversation, right? I think this is very good.
Mm.
Maybe, I hope so.
No, it was good. We definitely lack structure and should you figure out
But we need more structures in.
maybe.
Okay, so you know what we'll do next time if we have another conversation. I think we will. Let's make a
I don't
list.
know. I don't know. Maybe it won't work with structure. I don't
I don't
know.
know. No, look, this is very good. I think we got a lot. We had a lot. We opened things up here, no?
I enjoyed it. I don't know what a listener would think.
Yeah,
I don't,
okay. Whatever. We can find out. Everyone's welcome to tell us. But maybe next time, maybe we should just, you know what we should do? Maybe we should start with a list of like the various things that occur to us that we have to get to. At least we'll have like some sense of what the issues are as part of the like what the issues that are in part of this project are. You know, like okay, defining it, teaching it, I don't know, where is it, how to get it out there, who the people are. Maybe we should just to like give a little bit of a map of what we think is important. And then we can figure out what we want to talk about. Okay, we'll see. Let's stop the recording, okay?
yeah.